What I've got for you today is supposed to be an amazing game of StarCraft 2. It was recently played during the RSL, and game number 1 takes place on a brand new map. Now, I don't know how to pronounce it, so we'll get into that in just a moment. But spawning right here, with the blue SCVs all the way in the top left-hand corner, we're looking inside of the main of ByuN, and his opponent down in the bottom right with the red Protoss probes. He goes by the name of Trigger. So the map is called Cenotaph, or Cenotaph, or Kenotaph. No, I think it's Cenotaph. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. This is a new map specifically made for the RSL as far as I'm aware, so obviously we have the official StarCraft 2 ladder map pool, and there's a, well, limited amounts of maps that players get to play on the ladder. There's 9 of them in total, but recently new tournaments have started mixing in brand new maps. And I'm here for it, man. I've said this a million times before, but I think maps in general need to be changing constantly. Maybe once every 3 months or so would be really nice, just to keep the game fresh, to keep the game interesting. And, well, this will be our very first match on this particular map. I don't know if it's going to be any good, but, well, judging by the name, it's been made by Avex, and Avex has made a lot of good StarCraft 2 maps over the years. I actually believe that he was retired from map making, but I guess he came back, which is pretty nice to see. Apparently, ByuN, though, well, he wants to go for a good old engineering bay block right over here in the natural expansion of Trigger. And as this game starts off, maybe we can spend a little bit of time looking around. So first off, the color scheme, all of these god rays coming in from the skies, I'm a fan. We've got the low ground expansion right over here. Looks like there is a little bit of, yeah, there's like multiple Reaper jump up locations. This is actually quite a interesting section of the main base. Obviously, it's mirrored on the other side. Usually, we don't quite have these very long ledges. There's a couple of skinny mineral fields to, I guess, shorten the distance that you need to cover if you want to wall off the low ground. Fair enough. There's a base over here with the conventional 8 mineral fields, it looks like. Same right over here. A little bit further to the right. Okay, forward expansion too. Nothing here all too crazy. Although, at first glance, like these little pockets and the whole middle section, they do look a little bit different than what we normally see in SC2. Looks like there are a few watchtowers as well that have collapsible rocks right next to them. So you can go ahead and attack the rocks, and they will probably collapse on top of that Xel'Naga watchtower, meaning that you can deny the vision there for a little while. Fair enough. Nothing all too crazy here. Nothing all too weird. Now, I've heard that this particular match, or this particular map between these two, is an absolute banger. So we'll find out how good the map is, I suppose, here over the next little while. As we do have a very quick sentry here for Trigger. It's Stalker into Sentry, so not the greediest way to start. But of course, this is a very common sight these days. Getting those hallucinations flying around the map, it gives Protoss all of the vision that they need. And in this particular instance, Trigger is going to scout that it's a good old 1-1-1. It's a double gas, so a pretty quick starport here on the back of this as well. Reactor, tech lab, nothing out of the ordinary. And we'll see what ByuN decides to send across here in just a moment. That is always a bit of a guessing game, I guess, if you're a Protoss. It's one of those things where, yeah, sure, you've scouted it, but now you've scouted that it's a barracks factory starport, so they can still theoretically produce anything. Gets a little bit messy. Looks like this little stalker over here, though, has found a nice little spot to chill. I gotta say, I do like how bright the map is. For a while, we had a lot of dark maps in StarCraft 2. And while, yeah, the dark, gritty aesthetic is always nice as well, I do like it when the maps are nice and readable. I think at least for watching the very large engagements later on, it is nicer to have a slightly brighter map, just because the colors usually stand out a little bit more. Are we going to force field? I mean, that was a very bold move with the sentry. If maybe you would have, well, force fielded behind the Cyclone, it would have gotten something done. This middle section, now that is neat. That I did not recognize yet. This is a healing shrine on top, or I guess a Xel'Naga tower on top of a Xel'Naga healing shrine. There are some rock towers surrounding it too, so I'm assuming if you destroy it, you'll probably destroy both the rock, well, both the healing circle, as well as the watchtower itself. Good reaction speed so far, although there is still, okay, one Widow Mine available. ByuN did manage to snatch the one Widow Mine that did fire very rapidly. A little bit of damage done. Losing the sentry kind of sucks for Trigger. Obviously, you can remake it, but you don't have an infinite amount of gas available at this stage in the game. I quite like this, though. The concept of having a healing shrine and a Xel'Naga tower all at the same time is pretty neat. Trigger is ready to dance. He's built 3 gateways. So not an all-in-y variant of this build. As a matter of fact, he's going to try and build a Nexus, but ByuN will be able to stop that. What about the push over here at the front? With triple gate, you still can certainly do a lot of damage. Looks like the Widowmine drop went back in. Widowmine did only kill a single worker. Yeah, he's already settling for some harassment in the natural instead. Third Nexus will start up. Good sniper there on one of the Stalkers. Nexus, though, has been successfully delayed. And while the Cyclone, yeah, it did decide to drive back home for just a moment. Medevac looks like it will probably get intercepted here. A little bit of luck here for Trigger. All of this is looking very, very good, of course, for our Terran player. He's delayed the third Nexus. He's helped his early game aggression very nicely. He got a few Stalkers to boot as well. And while this isn't the most incredible start, considering how good Protosses are these days at preventing those Widow Mines from destroying mineral lines, I think this is about the best case scenario you can really hope for here for ByuN. Even though he's lost a bunch of units, it is all very, very much so. Okay, now, the big combination here is coming up, right? We have Combat Shields, Stimpak, +1 infantry attacks. All of it is coming up, and it will finish within the next minute or so. For now, though, what is this? A little hit squad of Zealots dropped right next to a siege tank to, I guess, tank some of the damage and kill one of those bad boys? Okay. Honestly, tank kills here are quite nice. The attack that will likely be coming up in a moment is going to be leaning into siege tanks. So the more of those bad boys you can remove out of the equation at this point in time, the better. There was a single bench he made as well here by ByuN, so he's going to be sending that one around the site. Prism in the main base in the meantime, just trying to harass whatever it can. It's weird to see a few Zealots inside of a Prism just to try and harass, but here goes the Banshee. Yeah, there is a shield battery in the natural already, so he decides to send it over to the third. No cloaking field or anything along those lines, so this Banshee is really just here to maximize damage and maybe to hide in the corner. Nah, we're just going to maximize damage. 5 probes is pretty good. Is he going to get a 6th? He will. Okay. Now, Psystorm is already on the verge of finishing up. That's one of the things, of course, that Terran players have been very vocal about lately. They are absolutely hating the way that Protoss players are, well, currently getting that upgrade so quickly these days. It's almost become the golden solution to everything. It's scary to get the upgrade out. It takes a while because it's very expensive. It's a big investment. But Protoss players have refined their build orders over the last couple of months to make sure that, well, in this particular instance, for example, the upgrade is done plenty in time. Previously, the goal was to effectively get Storm done by the time that this army gets across. But Protoss players are happy now, reducing their early game economy in favor of a faster Storm upgrade. Because as long as they can hold the first big attacks from the Terran, usually they will be okay. So already, we have 5 High Templar hanging out together, accumulating energy for some additional Psy Storms. And yeah, ByuN has decided to not even really move out, it seems. Really just using the little bit of army that he's got to secure the third. This feels a little bit sad for Terran, though, because he did have a good early game, like, in general. I mean, he lost the siege tank, I suppose, but he should have real pushing potential. He's going to give it a shot now, but I'm a little bit afraid with the amount of choke points on this map. I mean, if we go to the mirrored location on the other side and this ramp is going to be the area where we fight, so many good Storms. Trigger could certainly deal quite a bit of damage. Trigger, by the way, has been looking very strong as of late. I believe he's been spending a lot of time over in Korea. I believe he's got his own place there, and this is also played, I believe, on the Korean server, as we do have some juicy Storms going down left, right, and center. Trigger, of course, a Canadian player, really making a name for himself over the last few years. He's been looking very powerful. Are we just gonna storm more? Yeah, dude, keep storming. I mean, this little line of sight blocker is a bit messy, and I wonder if he's over pushing it. I don't really know exactly why we decided to go that deep. More High Templar, though, are showing up. Do any of them have storms? He is retreating through the Xel'Naga healing shrine, which is kind of neat. Okay, both players kind of overextending there for a little while, so I think it evens up in the end. But there is a fourth Nexus on the back of this. Ghost production, though, has now kicked in. And of course, those ghosts are going to be exactly what ByuN needs with the EMP ability. He can remove energy. He can remove shields. So getting his own spellcasters out is going to be absolutely critical to try and fight the opponent's spellcasters. But yeah, Trigger here in Clan Basilisk KR, which I believe is just the Korean branch, the Korean team on the Korean StarCraft 2 server. And usually, you only play Korea versus Korea if the players are in Korea. You don't generally go... I mean, if Trigger right now is in North America, I guess it depends on where you are, but sometimes playing the Korean server is doable, but usually it would just give too much of a ping advantage in this particular instance to ByuN, who is most certainly over in Korea right now. But I know Trigger has been spending a lot of time there, so very likely. He's got a fourth Nexus here, and then a fifth immediately on the back of this. So this is the big change, right? Sometimes Terran players delay their third Nexus in order to get the Storm upgrade faster. In this particular instance, Trigger, well, he was delayed on his third, but he effectively got the fourth base going much later, and then pretty much immediately a fifth on the back of this too. So all of this is just to try and get that Storm upgrade done ASAP. Now at this point, ByuN is going to be able to have a reasonable counter against it, but even when you do have the Ghost out, it's still not easy. Cloaking Field, though, the personal cloaking for the Ghost is going to be finishing up in just a moment, and ByuN has done an excellent job building up his own economy. A little bit of a fight here in the middle of the map again. Jimmy walks to the healing shrine just to be topped off. You'll love to see it. There's a little bit of a graphical glitch on the Zelnaga tower. You can kind of see the square outline of... I don't know, what is it? The healing shrine itself? A little bit messy. A lot of rocks all over the map, by the way. I wonder where this rock tower... Like, when you destroy these rocks, do they just collapse right over here? I guess so. There's just Templar everywhere. The weather forecast is extremely stormy, ByuN. I know the map looks very nice and bright, but the weather here is crazy. ByuN, though, already preparing for a Sky Terran transition, right? I mean, at the very least, he's getting the +1 air weapons. Colossi are here. Obviously, Vikings are going to be a necessity, but likewise... Later on into the game, usually Liberators are a very good choice, so getting these upgrades going nice and quick can be extremely beneficial. It looks to me, though, that ByuN is just happy to play the macro game. A lot of Terran players are currently going for all-ins. 1 base, 2 base, 3 base. This is not what ByuN is aiming for at all. He starts up the Fusion Core right now. That will likely be for the Liberator ranged upgrade and the Medivac energy buff. Dude, the High Templar are becoming so bold lately. That was one High Templar just moving in by itself and landing a storm on a bunch of SCVs. I don't think ByuN can go down any of these ramps. As long as there's a High Templar nearby and Trigger is doing that new thing where you just sort of sprinkle the Templar around the map all over. You can't really go down any ramp as long as Trigger has any say in the matter. We have another SCV. Ooh, a storm drop right over there. Okay, at least some of the High Templar are dying, but look at how aggressively they are moving forward. Archon as well, just to make things a little bit more difficult. These storms are so incredibly nice. The only thing that's really saving ByuN here is the Planetary Fortress. The fact that there's a planetary to fall back to is incredible here. In the meantime, we have a double expend for Trigger. If ByuN is not careful, Protoss is gonna run away with the victory. Effectively, what ByuN has been doing so far is he's just trying to play survival. And playing survival is fine and all, but if Protoss just has a huge eco, what are you gonna do? Can we get one more storm? Can we get one more storm? These High Templar, well, they're looking at it. Okay, EMP does prevent them from getting the most glorious hit ever. Planetary Fortress is still up as well. We have 11 High Templar. That's more than the Stalkers and the Zealots combined. Trigger, luckily here for him, manages to slowly fly those High Templar away. Losing them would have been an absolute disaster. Still though, look at the amount of money that he's got in the bank. He's got 14 gateways right now. He's like 1 warping away from being maxed out again. Probably could just go ahead and do it right now, but he's decided not to. Yeah, and ByuN is not really able to find a proper angle where he doesn't get stormed too hard. Lucky for him, those High Templar were not within range to storm the army that was cramped up against those rocks. But that could have been a real big issue here for the Terran. Well, we've got those Nexi on the outer perimeter right now, though, already finished. Trigger not yet opting to go for the one in the middle of the map. ByuN leading his army right now with a single Ghost. He wants to get some EMPs in, or maybe even some snipes, or some auto attacks. Sure. That bad boy didn't worry about snipes. Bunch of Zealots over here, though, mispositioned. And Trigger apparently not too confident, as he does get some nice storms off, but not too confident that he can actually fight this army straight up. He's gone for a bit of a counterattack. Oh my god, the Colossus can walk from the natural straight towards this base over here. But Trigger has sent most of his army across the map. This is going to prompt a bit of a base race here, of course, from the Terran. And do you decide to commit? Another one of the Ghosts just popped out of that production structure and managed to EMP the High Templar, and he also managed to snipe one of those bad boys. The Terran army, though, is very disjointed, as some of it is running back home. Some of it is still on the other side of the map, as he decided now to send everything back. 23 SCVs have gone down, but a lot of losses as well on the side of the Protoss. Trigger has 83 workers, and he's going to add even more on the back of all of this. So his eco is going to be absolutely booming. Look at that. About 2,000 resources more for every minute that goes by. Obviously, ByuN, though, can go ahead and even the odds a little bit with some mule production, but ByuN needs to be very careful. ByuN, by the way, building up barracks 9, 10, and 11. Rarely do we see Terran players go up to 11 Rex these days. Usually 8 is where they really, draw the line. But apparently ByuN has decided that we're going to try and solve this problem of mass Protoss units with mass Terran units. Alternatively, you can aim for the, well, for example, Liberators and all the rest of it. Those Zealots are having a good time slicing up a bunch of those, well, a bunch of those Vikings. Push over here at the front again, too. Protoss army is getting chased right now by that of the Terran. Can we get some EMPs over here? Doesn't look like it. The EMPs here from ByuN have been absolutely glorious, but Zealots are just everywhere. Planetary Fortress goes down, more and more SCVs are dying. Natural, I think about 20 SCVs died in that location of the map too. ByuN is going in for the counterattack though. It's an absolute mess all over. The choke points are making it nice for those splash damage units, right? But both players have access to them. That storm over there was good though, but the EMPs across the board have been phenomenal. A couple more snipies here. We should probably try to pick up and get on out of here, although, I mean, if you have the opportunity, you could always try and stand your ground. This one Zealot has been working away at this orbital for a while already. Finally, it does get lifted and moves a little bit closer to the planetary fortress itself. ByuN has now been knocked down to only 30 workers. He has a lot of CCs, so he can rebuild them. But Trigger's economy is still phenomenal. Trigger is aiming for triple digits worth of probes. And effectively what he's doing here is he's trying to Zerk the Terran player with Protoss. So sure, look at the resources lost. Phenomenal cost efficiency here for Terran, of course. Way more losses on the side of the Protoss. But Trigger is mining off of 90 plus workers for the majority of this game thus far. So he can replenish those troops and just sort of treat his Zealots like they are Zerglings. They don't pop out of cocoons. They don't come out, well, with a friend, right? They don't have a little brother, but I guess you can just send them in. Send in the skeletons. That's the goal right now. ByuN is effectively trying to destroy the Flood. But there is just so much Protoss all over. And even though I've been a little bit critical of Trigger's micro here and there, likewise, I've been critical as well of some of the misplays here from ByuN. The big advantage, of course, that Protoss has in these type of situations is that they can just replenish way quicker. If ByuN decides to fight fire with fire, aka play an 11 Rex against this sort of style, well, you better be prepared for the flames. I think this is another orbital going down. Okay, not quite. ByuN fast on the liftoff. We have a Colossus from the low ground as well. One robo only, by the way. It's basically just gateways. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple more robos going down. Maybe a few additional Stargates, but Trigger does not seem to think that it's necessary. Look at this. Trigger is taking the base right next to the natural expansion of ByuN. I don't think he's noticed that there is a base right over here in the middle. There's a very real chance that this is one of the very first times, if not the very first times, that these players are actually seeing, well, Cenopath? Cenothap? Whatever. Can we change the name? Thank you. I saw there was another new map, actually, in this particular tournament called Botanical. I think that's a cool name. Yeah, I can get on board with that. Either way, Trigger is losing what looks like hundreds of Zealots. And while it's a lot of losses, he may very well be winning the war. At this point, ByuN, he must see that a probe is going back and forth as well. He's almost soft-contained on the 4 or 5 bases or so that he's got. A lot of command centers available, though, across the board, so ByuN can quickly replenish it. I would have really liked to see the transition towards the Liberator army instead. When he first fired up the +1, I think it was a pretty good time. Where are we going, little factory? Okay. I think when he first started up the starport production and all the rest of it, he had a good opportunity to make that switch, but let's see. A few more Zealots going in around the site. Mineral line, though, at that point has been completely disappeared. Viking production has kicked back in because there are once more a few Colossi up. Honestly, though, Trigger is really just trying to bait out the Viking production here, because the Vikings are not ideal at all against Stalker Zealot armies. Finally, we have a second robo facility here for Trigger. I think the tech switches, right? When you see the opponent, okay, oh, we have a big recoil over here, but when you see that the opponent is low on the Vikings, just add in a bunch of Colossi. See how they deal with it. Usually it's going to force out a whole lot of Vikings, so you can stop producing Colossi and go back to the mass Zealot Stalker armies. Trigger is effectively just A-moving in here with as many of these little squads as possible. Planetary Fortress in the middle is gone. So, yeah, you can just send in little squads here pretty easily once more. Trigger, by the way, is now finally mining this base over here as well. And if you look at the worker count, we're up to 95 probes versus 39 SCVs. Impressive, of course, that ByuN is still in this, but this is not what you want to see from a Terran player ever. Terran having that much less income is a massive problem. Another big Zealot warp in. We're just sending in loads and loads and loads of them. How many have died? 214? Basically, what Trigger is doing is like a 250+ Zealot army. That's it. Very similar to the way that Zerg controls their armies. Trigger is just kind of attack moving and sending in the boys. That being said, though, ByuN is still holding his ground. Heads off to him. Not easily done. He's also starting up a little bit of that backdoor harassment. Got the base in the middle, once more up and running. Okay. I mean, I like this position for ByuN slightly more than a few minutes ago. He's been doing a very good job playing this defensive style out, and you can see that Trigger is not quite able to really stop the flood of these units. At this point, the Terran army is also to be respected. We're at 123 army supply, and considering the amount of probes that Trigger has, he can never really get there. Plus, of course, these are higher tech units than what Protoss currently has, because it's really just Zealots. There's one Disruptor in the mix, one High Templar, fair enough. A couple Colossi, a bunch of Stalkers, but it's mostly just a bunch of Zealots. And Trigger is not really looking to tech up either. He wants to continuously trade. And at this point, ByuN has, well, defended very nicely. He's got a planetary fortress in an interesting position. I quite like that, actually, rather than using it as the main location for the base. He's using it over there as a, I guess, a way to control that part of the terrain. Oh, indeed. Oh, sorry, Probius, you got caught in a landslide right over there. Looks like the healing shrine may still be underneath, but the rocks will have to get destroyed. What about this push right over here, though, from the Terran player? We're going to have to see a little bit of micro moving backwards, but honestly, so far, so good. Disruptor gets nuked down. Colossi are getting sniped as well. ByuN is winning the engagement here. He's been losing so many of those small skirmishes, but it does not matter if you win the war at the end. A couple additional High Templar get sniped as well. The EMPs have been good. Reinforcing Stalkers, though, and new Zealots are showing up right now. Trigger has so much money in the bank, But he obviously can only warp in units when the warp gates are off cooldown. Another big storm, though. Energy recharge being so valuable once again. Looks like we have a Stalker and a Zealot harassing a mineral line together. I think it's about time we back off, ByuN. When the next warp in hits, and that's coming right now, this Protoss army is going to overwhelm. Then again, he wants to continue microing. We have one Colossus on the right as well, just putting in a little bit of supplemental damage. ByuN is trying to see if he can overwhelm this. The problem is, Trigger is mostly limited by his warp-ins. He's got 15 gateways. And obviously, they're only going to be available every once in a while, but he's got money to reinforce this for days. As a matter of fact, now that's a little cheeky. He's building up a Nexus right underneath the Terran's nose. Vikings, though, are joining in, and I mean, Trigger has to be careful that he does not get a little bit too aggressive here, right? I mean, yeah, he's got money to throw away. But you gotta be careful you don't turn into one of those lottery winners that you hear about, right? Where they I don't know, they win like $15 million and for some reason they're broke the next day. How did you do it, Trigger? You are very much so in a situation where you can win the game, but ByuN is not gonna make it easy for you. And ByuN's army is still ludicrously big. Orbital Command, by the way, I think that's what this is, yeah, has just flown on over. We have a bunch of probes trying to kill the base. Very ambitious little play. Okay, well, that's another way, I guess, of sorting out that issue. Fight over here, though. Look at that. More Zealots sort of just run to their deaths. And Trigger is being a little bit too greedy for my liking. Obviously, Zealots are, well, 4 times as expensive as a Zergling, and we've now seen so many of them going down. Actually, 300 on the dot. That is the equivalent of 1,200 Zerglings there. It's a lot. It's a whole lot. And Trigger still has more money available for it, too. Economically speaking, I mean, ByuN has been on the up and up. His bank, by the way, has been pretty much entirely depleted. ByuN is playing this out masterfully. If he had a stronger early game, maybe a slightly stronger early mid-game would be a better way to describe it, because I really didn't mind the start of this game for him, but if he didn't get overwhelmed in the earlier stages of the mid-game, I think this game would have been phenomenal for Terran, but he's still trying to make this work, and he's doing so very nicely. Natural expansion, though, is likely going to go down right now to the Stalkers. One more volley will do it, and ooh, that Purification Nova did clip quite a few of those Terran units on the back. ByuN trying to set up a bit of a surround as we have Trigger flanking here with a random disruptor. Actually, not a flank, it's a miss rally. Base in the far bottom left is going to be coming up again. ByuN still has 125 army supply, by the way. It is bigger than Trigger's, even though it may look a little bit deceiving if you just pay attention to the total amount of supply. A bunch of Zealots there get caught in the Nova too. Trigger may very well be throwing this. He decides to recall with about half his army, but it's so risky. Okay, the recall completes. The Colossus goes down immediately. He's trying to see if he can still somehow, some way kill the Nexus. A liftoff is a necessity, though, as, well, ByuN can just barely get away. It's always dangerous when you recall against a Terran army like that. You never really have control as to where the units spawn around the Nexus. Trigger manages to keep that Nexus alive, but that required a whole lot of luck. It's basically just Zealots and Disruptors now. There's a few Templar in the mix, a few Colossi sometimes. This is nice, though, for ByuN. He's going to be able to shut down this base with relative ease before the reinforcing units can show up. Part of the Terran army is also ready to defend right over here. ByuN is all over that, too. Disruptors are getting targeted down. Okay, we do have a nice snipe as well on that High Templar's energy. ByuN holds his ground right over here, too. Bottom left is gone. I would love to see one little drop to finish off the middle. Finishing off this Nexus over here would actually be a disaster for Trigger. Still, though, the Planetary Fortress over here is not invulnerable. SCVs are pulled too slowly. Finally, Trigger manages to strike back. In the meantime, ByuN is attacking in the far top right. Okay, that's a lot of dead SCVs. ByuN is now down to a meager 16. That is not good for Terran. Nearly half an hour into the game. I would love to see Trigger maybe add on a whole lot of Archons as well, man. I know there's a few Ghosts available, but the Ghosts are not cheap. And this is a Terran player that's been broke for the better part of 15 minutes. Jimmy did a flip. Nice work right there, Jimmy. Trigger, though, is a little bit afraid of all of his units getting EMP'd. Now, look at this. The mules. The mules are here, but the command center itself is not going to be here for much longer if Trigger has any say in the matter. So much damage being done. The repair will, though, keep this around for a little bit longer. Another part of the Protoss army is moving in through the middle. ByuN has successfully, though, mined out pretty much the entire mineral line here. Some Novas try to connect. And Trigger's income is just still carrying him through this. My god, it's an absolute bloodbath. So many dead Protoss units. But every time that ByuN kills a Zealot, 2 new ones seem to appear. And as cost efficient as he's been, I don't believe he's gonna be able to really fight against this for a whole lot longer. So many losses. Look at that. 57,000 minerals lost on the side of Protoss. That's absurd. 344 Zealots, 10 Colossi, 36 High Templar. Ay, ay, ay. ByuN is broke. He's got this mineral line right over here, but he has a very large army to support. And Trigger is still, even after losing so many workers, he's lost 53 of them in total, compared to 146 SCVs, by the way. But even though so many bases have been killed, so many probes have been destroyed, Trigger's economy is still okay. I don't think it's really anything to write home about. What about this, though? The EMPs, again, are absolutely massive. But Trigger just has so much stuff. Then again, though, the Marauder count is massive. The Marauder count is huge, and he is sniping the Disruptors. 2 Disruptors go down. The Colossi are having a good time, but they're not really dealing a lot of damage here to those Terran units. New Storm has finally appeared. Vikings are joining in the fray as well. We have another one of those storms completing. Some feedbacks as well. Colossus finally does go down. A new Colossus, though. Yeah, 2 more have shown up from the bottom, and ultimately, ByuN is not able to stay afloat. But man, did Trigger have to fight for this win. Next up, we find ourselves on Persephone. Now, of course, after a phenomenal macro game, what do you do in game number 2? You build a double proxy Rex on the opponent's side of the map. Trigger did send out a probe scout. This is something that Protoss players have been skipping out on a little bit as of late. They are a little bit greedy. Terran players absolutely hate it. Look at this. There's 2 probes looking around. Oh, no. This is a disaster for ByuN if he gets spotted. No way. No way! There's 2 probes, man. Somehow, some way, ByuN is in this, like, one dark spot on the map. Ay, ay, ay. There's 3 probes. There's 3 probes out on the map to check for proxies. And somehow, some way, ByuN has managed to stay hidden. Well then. That's a little bit awkward. It's gonna be Reapers, which, generally speaking, is not that big of a problem. Trigger also decided to go Cybercore before Nexus, so he should be able to get units out in time. This is why you usually go Stalker first. Yep. He needs to wait for the pylon, though. Okay. Does start up. Do we have enough? Now he realizes, by the way, just based on the timing of this unit showing up, that there is a proxy out there somewhere. Normally, you only have a single barracks proxy. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, nothing else was really scouted, so no factory or whatever. Which, yeah, now with the arrival of the second Reaper as well, is going to allow Trigger to really put the dots together here and figure out exactly what's happening. Is there enough, though, for Terran to really overwhelm this? I don't think so. Shield battery coming up, too. We have new Stalkers popping out. And honestly, everything here is quite comfortable right now for Trigger. Did ByuN really deal enough damage with this? This commentator can only say no. Inspired by Donnie Vermillion. Shout out to my boy Donnie. The greatest, most neutral journalist in the entirety of the StarCraft 2 universe. Anyways, ByuN knows that he could be in some trouble. He decides to build up a bunker at home. We're gonna go for a Widow Mine, and eventually those barracks do make it back. But this is certainly not gonna be any of that mech shenanigans, right? That, for example, Clem has been messing around with quite a lot. Already, Trigger is gonna be able to cross a bunch of potential builds off of the list. He decides to just follow this up with the most conventional start, though. So, just a good old Twilight Council here. Technically, you could go into, for example, a Stargate build as well. Very common against Zerg. Not very common against Terran. Twilight Council, though, will give him access to Blink. And the problem is, right, as ByuN right now, what if you go up against... Okay, that was a little sloppy. What if you go up against, for example, an 8 Rex? It's so difficult... Or an 8 Rex, sorry, a 4 gate. It'd be very impressive here if Trigger would be playing an 8 Rex. What do you do right now if you go up against, like, a 4 gate push? Normally, those builds are hard to hold. Oh, Trigger may actually go for the exact opposite end of the spectrum. Rather than just going for a complete all-in, he, I think, is going to take a super fast third Nexus, which is not a good alternative choice. You know at this point that Terran is not going to be able to really do much, although he did snipe an additional probe just now. Okay. Yeah, the Reapers are a nuisance. But this is now a third Nexus off of 2 gateways. In the previous game, he did it off of 3. In the past, it was the norm to build it off of 4. Trigger is effectively saying, yo, your early game was not quite so efficient. You're likely not going to be able to do that much against my third base. So I will pretend to be a little bit aggressive, but in reality, I am playing what you could even label as like a macro cheese. And now ByuN sees it. This is something he needs to address. The timing of that alone is already going to give away that this is indeed a double Rex. Obviously, it means that there's not a lot of unit production, but likewise, ByuN, he had to fly those barracks back home. The early game wasn't really that efficient for him. He did get a bit of value, but really nothing to write home about. This push right now is in a very weird way almost like an all-in. Like, this needs to deal damage. There's no medevac here. Okay, new one does show up. I was going to say it's a little odd. Observer, by the way, does see the boosted by medevac. So it's going to give Trigger all of the information. And yeah, Trigger is going to try and see if he can slow this down. Ooh, a little bit of miscontrol there. Are a few SCVs in the mix. Stalker production, though, is dangerous right now. And we are going to go up to 6 gateways. Oop, nice move. What about the medevac? The medevac does have room, but the medevac itself dies. ByuN getting a little bit ahead of himself. He's going to try and salvage this by stimming the Marines, but that was an awful lot of losses. Really, your only staying power with these type of fights, with these type of attacks, well, it comes from the siege tanks. And right now, ByuN has lost his backbone. In the meantime, there is a Liberator going into the main base too, just to be a nuisance, but all of the Marines are gone. Liberator is going to try and cycle around the site, but this is a disaster right here for the Terran player. Obviously, it's not really reflected yet in the supply count, right? If you look at just the worker count, everything is fine as well. The problem is that Trigger now has 3 Nexi versus ByuN's double command center. And ByuN is spending his additional money right now on additional barracks. So no command center for him on the back of this. He's effectively gonna turn what kind of felt like a 2-base all-in into like a proper 2-base all-in. Any unit kill right now is nice for Trigger. He's got the observers in great positions as well, and he's looking around right now. Is there a third command center anywhere? It doesn't really look like it. You can't possibly tell all the info, but I would imagine this observer is gonna check down the natural here in just a moment. Robo Bay on the back of this. So we do have a Colossus firing up very soon, I'm sure. I don't think we want an Immortal anyways. Council the Immortal. Go into a... Alright, well, we are going to go into an Immortal, apparently. He's been busy trying to micro out on a map. Those pylons were just a little bit late. And that could be a problem. Hitting any sort of supply block. Likewise, actually. Ooh, big supply block for ByuN. ByuN, do we have any energy? Oh, no. ByuN just hit the absolute worst supply block you can hit. 78 out of 78 is almost like a bit of a Terran classic. We see that quite frequently. When you're just about forced to go for an all-in, to then hit a supply block is an absolute disaster. I think you sniped the third. Trigger, though, he's out for blood. He doesn't want the third. He decides to go for the siege tanks and effectively the throat itself. Sentry decides to move forward with a Guardian shield, and ByuN cannot hold on. And just like that, it's Trigger who obtains the victory 2-0 over a previous world champion of StarCraft 2. And he does so with very different strategies, right? So in game number 1, we had, well, almost the Zerg-esque approach of playing Protoss. And then in game number 2, we still had a lot of gateway units, but he effectively just played a very greedy eco early game. It's a variety of strats, and Trigger played both of them very, very nicely. So certainly somebody you want to keep in mind. In case you haven't been watching a lot of StarCraft, Trigger has been on the up and up over the last couple of years, but right now especially, he's looking real strong.